Okay, hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a really cool episode for you, one that has been a long time coming. It's something that I've kind of talked about and hinted at in a couple of my wristwatch reviews, especially ones, of course, where we're featuring some of those watches on NATO straps. This particular video is going to be kind of a comparison and contrast between what I think are some of the best high-end NATO options that are out there. And by high-end, essentially, you know, these are the top of the line models from each one of these brands. Some of them, of course, mainly focus just on the higher end options, but some also offer a wide range. But generally, what's going to set these apart is going to be just the attention to detail, the quality of materials used, and of course the execution and the finishing. So that's something that I think is important to everybody. Of course, you know, your run-of-the-mill $11 to $15 NATO strap, not a lot of people really are going to be too worried about the quality. Of course, they want something that, of course, suits their needs and fits well. But if you're in the range, essentially, for something that's just a little bit more robust, a little bit nicer, maybe something to dress up your watch, and of course, NATO straps can also dress down, kind of a more dressier watch, of course, as an option. But I figured why not have these together and kind of compare and contrast and kind of show some of the differences, some of the strengths, some of the weaknesses of these premium options. So of course these are going to range anywhere from 30 to 40 bucks, and what you're going to get is just a little bit more of a high-end experience. You know, the packaging is going to be stepped up a little bit more, the design is going to be stepped up a little bit more, and then of course the materials and finishing, as I mentioned previously. So let's go ahead and get into this here, and we'll go ahead and start out on this side. So from here we actually have some from Blue Shark, and these are from their Alpha Shark line, and essentially this is kind of their big boy, and they definitely offer, let me get that into focus there, they offer a lot of different options on these, and this is just kind of a selection where I wanted to make sure that we see the different finishing. Here's the nice brushed finish, as you can see, really nice hardware, and then here we have the polished. So just so you can get an idea, I think these buckles are really executed very nicely, and you know, from the competition here, I think the buckles are very strong. The hardware itself is definitely also beefed up and very nice. You know, there aren't any fine edges on it or anything like that, but I think overall very nice quality. Of course, very thick. I think this might actually be the thickest. The Haveston straps are a bit thicker, but I think for this kind of tightly woven style, these are quite thick and very robust. So these are definitely really nice from Blue Shark. So we'll go ahead and kind of go down the line before we start doing comparisons, but let's go here to Phenomenato. You guys may remember seeing a couple of these straps in my videos and of course on my Instagram. Let's go ahead and get the camera to focus there. So as you can see here, we have the polished finish there, and then the brushed, very nice fine satin brush on there, very impressive. And one of the nice features that Phenomenato has added is the sliding keeper, which I think is just such a simple thing, but is really huge. And then, you know, hardware wise, very nice. I really do like those keepers. The I guess I would say the buckles themselves aren't, you know, super impressive, but they definitely do the job. Sorry about the focus there. So yeah, I mean, I think they definitely do the job. One of the nice things about these is they are quite long, and with my 7¼ inch wrist, that is really nice to have. So moving on, here we have some from Zulu Diver by Gecko from Gecko. These actually haven't got too much press, and I'm not sure why, because they are really nice. I really do like the hardware on these. As you can see, really finely finished. You know, there isn't that little divot for the keeper there for this little guy, that little arm to rest in, which I think would have been a nice touch. But so I mean, other than that, I think these are just, you know, kind of perfectly executed for the hardware wise, and the hardware is very nice, really nicely done, signed there, all brushed for these guys. I think this is really excellent and really screams the premium look and feel. The one of my only issues is that it does use kind of a thinner nylon, which is still nice and it's high quality, but the hardware itself is so bulked up that it does leave a lot of room there. And when we start getting these on wrist, you'll kind of get a better idea of what I'm talking about. And then of course, last but not least, we have these straps from Haveston. And Haveston, also to mention, these do have the sliding keeper as well, which is a really nice feature. And at this point, I would kind of hope that all kind of high-end NATO should have something like that. Here we have the sliding NATO, the sliding keeper on the other end, and that's actually one of the things that makes the Haveston straps so different, is that they actually have kind of reworked and reimagined the way the NATO strap actually sits on your wrist. Try to get these into focus. Sorry about that, guys. You know, and then as you can see, also something that's different is for the matte finish, they didn't do a brush, they did a bright bead blast, which I think is really nice. I mean, they could have definitely went with something that was a little bit more coarse that was going to come out darker, but I think that satinized finish that they have actually still really does play well for, you know, against a brushed case. It doesn't, I wouldn't say that it necessarily needs to just be, sorry about the focus there, I wouldn't say that it just really would rely on something having a brushed, bead blasted finish to match. I think it actually does go well with a finely brushed case because of the more brighter finish in that kind of almost semi, not quite matte, more of a satin sheen. And then of course the high polish, really, really nice. And I really do like these buckles as well. It has that nice little place there, which is definitely nice. And then of course all, you know, really nicely rounded and everything there. It does have some nice contours. So really a big fan of these as well. And they just kind of have, as you can see, there's like the main stitch and then they have these outer stitchings here along the edges, which kind of just adds a little bit of dimension there. So of course, this wouldn't be complete if we didn't have a watch to run through here. For this review, I've chosen, let me take the dust off the sapphire there. I've chosen to use this nifty little Notice Trieste, and one of the reasons I chose it is, well, one, you know, it's a micro brand, so it's a little less common, and hey, why not help out the little guy and get them a little bit more coverage as well, because I did, if you guys have seen my review, I did think pretty highly of this bad boy. It is definitely really nice. It offers a Swiss movement, and they also do have you know, a lower beat count Japanese movement option for much cheaper. But I think this is really a great value for what you get. As you can see, the finishing, one of the reasons why I chose this, of course, is because it does have a brushed finish, but it also does have those polished highlights there. As you can see, that really beautiful bevel. And you know, when we're looking at these, you know, there's different finishes as far as you know, the way the hardware is. So I wanted something that would, you know, be pretty versatile, matching with the brushed hardware as well as the polished hardware. And then, you know, of course, a diver is definitely a very versatile watch, and something that goes well on a NATO. So let's go ahead and start out with the Blue Shark option here and the Alpha Shark. So we'll go ahead and slide this through so you guys can kind of see the ease of use. Get that all the way through, pull this through here, and then, you know, I always try to essentially bend it like this, and then I try to see where that keeper will fall and try to match kind of, I know you would think instinctively, oh, well, if you kind of center it in between this one and this one will look even, but when you have it on the wrist, it'll move. So, ooh, a lot of fingerprints on there, so don't mind that. But actually, you know what, I'll go ahead and put this on in front of the camera so you can kind of get an idea of the way that it wears, and also how easy or hard it is to put on. So as you can see here, you know, this looks really, really nice, and it doesn't add too much thickness. It does add some thickness for sure. One of my problems with this one is that it just isn't long enough for my wrist. You know, I like to actually fold it back in going outwards. But this one is a little bit shorter, so I'll just tuck it in here and we'll have it just kind of go, ooh, sorry, should do that on camera there. Have it go inwards from the top there. So as you can see, really nice option, and I think it does suit the case well. And then you have, ooh, let me wipe off some of the smudges there. Keep this looking nice and pristine for you. So I think it definitely does go well with the, of course, the particular color scheme. And I chose this piece because, ooh, more smudges. Sorry about that, guys. It's pretty hot in here right now as I film this, so pardon the smudging and a little bit of extra glisten on the wrist. So really wears well. It's quite comfortable. I do like the way the holes are sealed here. They definitely, you know, the square cutouts. It's definitely better than just kind of a simple punch, and you can tell that the holes are actually finished quite well. Nice, comfortable feel. It is a little bit on the thicker side, so it does add a little bit of height. But I think, you know, on wrist you can kind of tell there that it's you know, nothing crazy or makes the watch unwearable. But yeah, I mean, as far as the, you know, for me with a larger wrist, that kind of shortness there is something that I really am not crazy about. But I mean, the quality wise, really, really nice, especially this great buckle there. And then as you can see, kind of on my 7 1/4 inch wrist, the buckle itself is gonna end up laying kind of not quite centered, but right on this end. So I'm having a good amount of material here towards the side of my wrist, and then a little bit thinner on this side. So not quite as balanced of a wear as some of the other ones you'll see today. But all in all, if you have a smaller wrist, I think this is definitely a great choice. So let's go ahead and move on to the next here. Sorry about that. Oop. We'll get this in here. Alrighty. So let's move on to the, oh, this one has the brushed finish. This is a nice gray from Phenomenato. We'll put it on here. So as somebody who really enjoys gray NATO straps, as you can tell, I'm actually a huge fan of Admiralty Gray. And I think this particular color by Phenomenato, I think comes really close to hitting that kind of steel gray color and feel, which is really, really nice and very versatile. I think it goes really well with really any watch. And then again, what I try to do is I, you know, bend these down and kind of see where it goes. I'm pretty good at eyeing it, so pretty close. So we'll get this on the wrist now. Okay, really nice long strap end there, as you can see. One of the really nice things about having all that extra slack is now when I feed this down, plenty there, plenty of material, and then with the adjustable keeper there, I can have it sit very nice. And as you can see, this sits definitely more centered as far as the clasp goes on the wrist, which I think definitely does help with the comfort and also aesthetics. You know, it's nice to have some symmetry there. And then of course I can, because of the height, there we go. And the material itself is very, very tightly woven, as you can see. Like, let's say in comparison to the Blue Shark, which is nice and definitely very premium still, but in comparison, this is definitely just more of a heavy weave, and then this is much more of a fine weave. And the thing I really like about that fine weave, of course, is it definitely feels more premium. This feels like a more expensive strap, although it isn't, you know, that much more expensive. These are all kind of in the $40 range collectively there. So, you know, I think it definitely offers very classic look and feel. And I gotta say, these are some of my favorite NATOs out of the bunch as far as traditional NATOs go. And then there's, I feel like the watch Gecko, the Gecko, Zulu Diver kind of collaboration, these I feel have a little bit more of a specific look to them with the more beefed up hardware. And then of course, they do have the kind of thinner, I'd say, out of all these. This feels more like a regular nylon versus the more premium nylon you'll find here, or with Haveston, of course. And I think Haveston, in general, is going to give you just kind of more of a feeling of a, you know, NATO version 2.0. It's not the traditional NATO. I feel like this is kind of the most versatile, nice version of a traditional NATO out of the bunch. And then I think these kind of make improvements on the traditional NATO. So, but as far as like a classic strap, and then one of the other things though about Phenomenato is, of course, the order experience is a bit harder, to tell you the truth. It's a very simple, and oh, in case you didn't see there, also want to make sure I show you guys this great little tag there. So the ordering experience, it does take quite a while for these to come from overseas. The tracking isn't great, but I mean, if it was, these would be, I feel like, would be even a better choice. Of course, the Blue Shark's going to be the most accessible. Zulu Diver, these ones actually ship very quickly. If you've ever ordered anything from Gecko, you know they ship quickly. Also Haveston, they also ship quite quickly, as long as you know what you're ordering is in stock. They're a new brand, so they are constantly rolling out new releases, some of which I have, but I cannot show you because they haven't been publicly released yet, but I do look forward to kind of sharing those ones with you. So let's go ahead and move on. Before I think I did the review of this one on this gray, and I think the nice thing about this gray, it almost has like a bluish hue to it, which I think plays off the bezel, of course, really well. I think really what they were going for wasn't necessarily to have a blue bezel with a black face, more so to kind of draw back to the more of a faded black bezel over time, which you'll see in kind of some more vintage watches where that kind of have that blue fade bezel that was once black. And I think here, of course, I mean, I think that Tudor, of course, with the black bay was probably one of the first companies to really do that kind of mainstream, but I think the color scheme here definitely works for the notice. So since I did review this watch on the gray, I'll go ahead and put it on the black for this review. And as you can see, of course, fancy tag, wouldn't be a premium NATO without some little extras there. And then, you know, for this one, I feel like it definitely feels thin, but I think it's just more so in contrast to how much they've bulked up the hardware. And I do really love the look of this hardware. I just kind of wish that that this was just a little bit thicker of a material, just so it would fill the wells a little bit better. The keepers, and you'll see that once I actually get this on wrist. Ooh, whoops. Okay. So get that there. Then similar to the Phenomenato, it does have that sliding keeper, so we tuck this in here and then we scoot the keeper down to meet wherever it needs to be, which is definitely a nice feature. So as you can see here, there's just a little bit more of a gap there. And you know, that's such a nitpicky thing, but I mean, it just, to me, just the contrast, I wish that this was either a thicker material or that these were just a little bit tighter. And just a little bit more shrunk down, just to kind of fill that. I don't think it really hurts the aesthetic. Of course, you know, you might have like a Zulu strap with the big rings here that are gonna leave a lot of gap there. So it's not something that I think aesthetically isn't pleasing to the eye. Then of course this folds over, so it's gonna fill that gap, you know, regardless. But for me, that's just such a little nitpick. But hey, we're looking at premium things that where they've taken a little extra thought, put a little extra time into design. So that's one thing. Hey guys at Gecko, if you're looking, I think if we just tighten that up just a bit, it would be great. Or if we used you know, slightly thicker material. One of the nice things though about this very thin material is that, as you can see, it adds very little height to the watch, which is really, really nice, and something to definitely consider when you're wearing a NATO strap. So let's get this off here. Alrighty. And then we'll close with the Haveston, which the Haveston strap, you know, I have a larger wrist, so normally I do like to really, you know, have that longer bit there, so it just, oops, sorry about that. So it'll fit a little bit better, but with the Haveston, because of the way they've actually kind of, oh, let me get some of the fingerprints off here off camera, sorry about that. Because of the way they've kind of reworked the way the hardware works and the design and kind of the play here, as you can see, it has this stitch here. These are way higher up on the strap, especially here, just to contrast, right? That's just a totally different position there, even here, right? That's where it stitches, that's where it ends. And one of the nice things is for this, I don't have to zero it in. I actually just butt it up right to that point, because this actually here is gonna fit on there, and it's not like I need to try to, you know, kind of shift it around, because it actually doesn't quite wear the same way, because it does this is the sliding keeper, right? So one of the nice things is now when I put it on, I can actually slide this to kind of line up with that one. So that's definitely kind of something that's different. It's something that I do really appreciate. And then as you'll see when I put this on here, kind of where the material is gonna lay, I think you'll notice there is quite a bit of a difference. Now, as you can see here, it is nice and centered, but there's not a bunch of extra here, because instead of having anything to fold over, it actually just fits about just right. You know, so instead of having a little bit too much where I needed to fold it, now I can kind of just take this and just drag the keeper right to where it lines up to hold that little bit of tongue there. And it definitely gives it more of a tool vibe and, you know, more of an industrial look. Definitely less dressy, but I think what it does do is very successfully kind of just have a different way to think of the position of the material, of the keeper, of everything. And I gotta say, this is really comfortable, especially considering how thick it is. I think kind of what the big payoffs for, you know, some of the thinner nylons is how comfortable they are versus some of the thicker stuff here. But as you can see, this one is thicker and also quite comfortable, just because I feel like they just did a little bit of extra homework as far as ergonomics go. So really a big fan of the Haveston straps. I think these are all great options. I guess what I'll do is kind of one last kind of overall on these for you. So if you're looking for, of course, something really easy to buy, easy to live with, you know, the Blue Shark, Alpha Shark is definitely a good choice, but I would just warn that if you have a smaller wrist, this definitely is more for you. If you have a larger wrist, you know, 7 and above, I have 7 1/4, you just aren't gonna have enough material, and then it's thick, but then also short. If they, you know, applied some of the kind of more modern sliding keepers, I think it would definitely be able to kind of resolve any of those kind of pet peeves there. But definitely a really nice choice, and I do like the squared holes. It does add a bit of you know, extra oomph to the watch. And then let's see, as far as, let's get the bond up here, from Phenomenato. Really nice piece. Again, I feel like this is kind of the traditional NATO strap perfected. It's very long, of course, and then you have the really nice tight, everything is just premium. And then they also added a little bit of innovation as well, which is great. So Phenomenato, really nice. I'd say this is probably my favorite nylon out of the bunch, just because it is so tightly done and it just has that feeling like it's gonna last, and it just stays looking new because of the quality here. You know, I've worn these many times, and it definitely on camera is still looking quite new. And maybe I should have thought that out a little bit better before I laid that there, huh? All right, so then moving on to the watch Gecko, Zulu Diver, Gecko, whatever you want to call it, strap here. It's considered their Swiss premium strap. Definitely is a nod to some of the Omega OEM NATO straps that you'll find out there, and this one is really nice. The hardware just perfectly executed. I just wish that it was just either they bulked up the material itself a little bit more, or they just made this sit a little bit lower. Maybe they had to sit a little bit higher just to kind of get that precision look. Maybe the tooling was just a little bit more difficult to have it be a little bit tighter. But I think that if they could make that just a little bit smaller, these things would pretty much be perfect. Also, they add the little notch, so this doesn't just wear down the finish there where this lands. It would be nice to have that little notch there. I just think it's just shows a little bit of a extra thought and more, gives you just kind of more of a finished feel. But you know, this is really nice. But I'd say out of the nylon here, this is probably the one that feels the most like a standard strap. But it's just kind of a contrast, right? You have this kind of over the top, overbuilt, glorious hardware, and then you have just what feels like pretty plain nylon. So you know, I feel like those could be where the improvements would go there. I mean, of course I really like the sliding keeper feature, really great. And then as far as Haveston, you know, one of the things I think that's their strong suit is that they come out with really interesting patterns, and there's a story to each one. So aesthetically, one of the nice things is you just have a lot of great options. As far as execution goes, this definitely is going to give you more of a rugged look, and this one you can tell it's been worn. You can tell there's been a watch on it because it's already beginning to contour where those spring bars are holding in there. And then of course you do have the sliding keeper, but it's thought out a little bit differently. It's on the other side, which is definitely a different take. And I think it's really cool. I actually wouldn't want them to change it to be like some of these more traditional layouts. I think that's just kind of this cool, thoughtful, funky choice there. And then of course the execution, it definitely just, I feel like it just gives it more dimension when you have kind of the different stitch there. I guess it stands out a bit better on here because there's no pattern, but as you can see, it has the very tightly woven nylon there, but then it has this kind of, this really reminds me so much of my gear from when I was in the Marine Corps. Our straps were very much like this olive drab color, but even the way it's finished there, where it's kind of like it's just an extra step, an extra dimension. You know, of course these can fray, and it's meant to kind of have more of that worn. It's gonna look good worn versus some of these, you know, may maintain looking new longer, but once they start looking used, aren't gonna look great. I feel like this one is just gonna wear really well with age, and then of course you can always take a lighter to it, kind of, and singe everything back down, and that's something I used to also do with my gear in the Marine Corps. You know, get all the little Irish pen IPs and cut them down, and then singe everything and make everything nice and tight again, and kind of rejuvenate it, renew it. So I mean, just that whole process and that thought, it just makes you a little bit more involved with the strap. And I think, you know, if you're going to spend premium price, you kind of do want a bit of a premium experience, and this adds a couple little quirks, I think, that are well worth it. So wow, I can't believe this has ended up being such a long video. Sorry about that, guys. I did have a lot to say on these, and this has been a long time coming. But if you guys, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are there any that you feel deserve to be on this list? I know I haven't had any experience with toxic NATO straps, but I do hear a lot of good things. For me, these were kind of my pick of the bunch because they did something a little bit different, each one of them, and I think what they do different really makes them stand out. And I understand there are other, you know, time factors and all that. They do offer premium options as well. For me, these were just kind of my choices based on kind of you know, what I like and kind of what I've seen in the market. You know, which ones I thought were worth going through the trouble of trying to order and figure out their ordering systems and everything. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked the video, please do hit like, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.